now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Yesterday, Congressman Kevin McCarthy was ousted from his position as Speaker of the House. And the reason why Kevin McCarthy was ousted from his position as Speaker of the House of Representatives had nothing really to do with the deal he made with President Joe Biden in order to keep the government running and operational. No, it had to do with his inability to make a deal that would cement his leadership when he was elected to become the Speaker of the House. Now, Kevin McCarthy approached the entire quest to become Speaker of the House from the position of a beta male, and oftentimes when beta males want to go out here and lobby for positions of power, many of these beta males do not lobby for that position from the right terms. And Kevin McCarthy basically came lobbying for the position of Speaker of the House from a position of weakness, and as he lobbied for this position from a position of weakness, he showed all of his opponents opportunities they could use to go out here and take advantage of him. Now, Kevin McCarthy, coming from a position of weakness, basically wanted to lobby to become the Speaker of the House and did so from a position of desperation. And it took multiple votes in order to get him elected to the Speaker of the House. And while Kevin was looking at the short term of getting the position, he could not see that he was not in a position where he had any sort of respect. Now, respect is an important thing when you're in a position of power, because if you don't have respect, then nobody will acknowledge you from a position of being an authority figure they need to regard. And Kevin McCarthy, lobbying from a position of desperation in order to get anybody into a speaker position, basically was coming from that position of weakness that showed he didn't really understand the subtle politics transpiring around him as related to acquiring and maintaining power, because again, if a person does not have the respect of their fellow members of their own party or the respect of others across the aisle in the blue party, then they won't be able to assert any sort of authority that anybody needs to regard. And if a person doesn't have any sort of authority that anybody regards, what people will be doing as you're working in any sort of position of power like Congress is, instead of them looking to work with you towards maintaining the agenda, their agenda is going to be undermining you. And as their agenda is undermining you, they're looking to take away your position of power and be able to get that power for themselves. And that's basically what happened within the Red Party. Instead of all of the party members who had all control over Congress being focused on the agenda of the Red Party, instead of them being focused on the agenda of the Red Party, many of the members started to become extremely dysfunctional, and they started to go off on their own directions because there was no leader to assert any sort of authority over these members to keep them focused on the agenda. And that really was shown with people like Lauren Boebert going out here and saying all sorts of things. Same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It is the Speaker of the House's job to regulate these individuals and let them know what the conduct they need to participate in order to maintain the party's position. Moreover, it's the leader's job to go out here and focus on maintaining the agenda. It is the Speaker's job to maintain the party's agenda so that people can focus on the goals that are set up for the party and the goals they are set up to accomplish as related to the legislation they are looking to pass. Unfortunately, because Kevin McCarthy was a beta male and coming from a position of weakness from minute one, they weren't able to go out here and lobby their power in order to get their agenda pushed. And instead of focusing on the bullet points of the agenda, such as preventing Joe Biden from being able to hire 87,000 IRS agents, stopping funding to the Ukraine, and other Red Party agenda issues, what Kevin McCarthy did was cede a lot of those positions to Joe Biden, because instead of preventing the 87,000 agents from being hired, he only presented 1,500, and that was the start of his position of weakness, and started people looking at his leadership and questioning his competency. Now, as things went on, he started to say things about Ukraine, but Ukraine funding still went through. And again, coming from that position of weakness, not seeing how his weak position was the thing that was undermining him with his own people, because they were looking at this man and seeing that he did not assert authority, he did not set order, and because he was not looking to lead in any way, shape, or form, the job was basically running him. I go back to what Gordon Ramsay said in season 3 of Hell's Kitchen to eventual winner Rock, where he told him, either you run the kitchen or the kitchen runs you. And what happened with Kevin McCarthy was the Congress was running him, and he was not running the Congress. And because he was not running the Congress, what happened was that the Blue Party began to take momentum over him. And as the Blue Party began to take momentum over him, even with a group majority, he did not have any sort of control over the Red Party agenda. And as he lost control over the Red Party agenda and lost control over members, what happened was the entire platform started to crumble under the Red Party, under his leadership, because all legislation has to go through the House, and if the legislation doesn't go through the House that they want, again, you're coming from a political position of weakness. And that's exactly what happened to Kevin McCarthy, coming from that political position of weakness. This is what made a lot of his own members of his party, who basically are weak males, start to believe they could go out here and take power from him, because he was giving power away. And he started giving away his power really from the beginning, as he was lobbying for the position of being the Speaker of the House by making the deal where he said that he could be ousted from that position on one single vote. Now, again, that's what happens when you come from a position of desperation. When you come from a position of desperation, you're eager to take whatever is given you, and whenever you make that kind of deal, you're going to make a deal on bad terms. This is what simps usually do when they try to go out here and beg women for dates. A simp will go out here and he will beg a woman for a date, but it won't be a fun experience for him, because what happens with that woman is she's not really engaged, she's not really enthusiastic, she's not really interested in getting involved with this guy. No, it's a free meal and a free drink for her, and this guy basically is out here looking like a joke. And he's looking like a joke because he made a deal on terms that weren't beneficial to him, and that's what beta males often do. Because they have such low self-esteem and low self-worth, and they're so desperate for what they want, they negotiate deals on bad terms, because they want to get whatever they want without ever looking at more important intangibles like their manhood and their character. And that's what happened with Kevin McCarthy. He went out here looking to get this position as Speaker of the House, to have this title, but not looking at the intangibles he was sacrificing to get that title. And those intangibles included his dignity and his self-respect. And because he didn't have any value of dignity over himself, this is why people did not respect him when he was appointed to this position of high political power. No, when they saw this man basically going to get 2 and 3 votes and begging and lobbying for this position like a pathetic person. They basically looked at him and said, this is not a guy we respect, because a man is going to go out here and yes, he will ask for a position, but he's going to do it in a way that preserves his intangibles of manhood, such as his dignity and his respect. And if people say no, he will be unfazed and charge it to the game. But he's not going to go out here begging for a position, because if you beg for a position, you're going to appear to be weak to those who you want to follow you. And if you appear weak to those people, what those people are going to do when you come into a position of power is not regard you in any way, shape, or form. And that's what happened to Kevin McCarthy. Many of the members of his own party did not regard him, even though he had gone out here and made this deal with Joe Biden to keep the government operational, and they didn't want to vote on that position because they saw that this weak leader went out here and ceded a lot of power. And because they saw this weak beta male going out here and ceding power, they decided to take that opportunity to go out here and take power for themselves. Because this wouldn't have happened to Newt Gingrich back in 1994. No, Newt Gingrich basically was a respected man in the House, and he was respected to the point where party members basically fell in line because they didn't want to alienate him because of his strong leadership. And that isn't the case with Kevin McCarthy. Again, this is why they were challenging him for that position. And that was all due to the terms, again, he negotiated by saying any one vote would be able to oust him from this position of speakership. And that was a bad deal from minute one. And everybody who was in any sort of political power, whether they blue or red, saw that as an opportunity to take power for themselves. And while some will say that Matt Gaetz basically and the others went out here and lobbied against Kevin McCarthy basically lobbied against himself, and that was by going over to the blue aisle and looking to go out here and hoping that they would go out here and give him votes to maintain his position of power. And again, that's coming from a position of weakness, expecting those who are your enemies to be your ally. Now, they went out here and again made that deal in the short term to go out here and keep the government operational for 45 days. However, what they did this for was to make, again, another political chess move where they were looking to get him off the board. And Kevin McCarthy couldn't see the big picture as related to getting himself off the board, and he couldn't see it because he thought, oh, nobody would go out here and look to oust him from that position. No, he created a covert contract in his mind that members of his own party wouldn't look to oust him. Moreover, he made another covert contract that blue party members would look to keep him in power, to keep the government operational for the next 45 days in order to prevent that shutdown and negotiate a deal. However, when it came time to go out here and make that and lobby to oust him, what happened to Kevin McCarthy was he wound up with a big surprise. And he wound up with a big surprise because he really, again, did not understand the subtle politics transpiring around him. And because he didn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around him, he could not understand that if you go out here and give people power, people are going to use it against you. This was a lesson I learned back in 2000 when I was working at Strive for AmeriCorps Vista, and the lead trainer of Strive at the time said that to a participant that if you go out here and give me power, I am going to use it. And it was a lesson that stayed with me almost 23 years later and taught me something about what happens when you go out here and volunteer information that people can go out here and use against you. And any smart man understands that you don't go out here volunteering information that others can use against you. No, you are smart enough to understand to just say just enough to get your point across. And that was where, again, Kevin McCarthy made his mistake way back in January. He made his mistake way back in January by giving people power to be able to take him out of his position. And you never do that in any sort of business or social situation, because the minute you do that, you are going to again show you are coming from a position of desperation. And if you come from a position of desperation, what's going to happen is people are going to see you as weak. Again, they're going to see you as somebody they don't need to respect or regard, and they're not going to allow you to have any authority or agency because you've basically given it away. And that's what happens with many simps and beta males. What happens with beta males is they'll go out here and they'll be so eager to get what they want, they don't see what they're giving away. Whereas a smart man understands that, yes, he may want something, but he has to go out here and count the cost before he goes out here and lobbies to get whatever he wants. He understands that he cannot give away too much to get what he wants, because if he gives away too much to get what he wants, what he gets won't have any value. And that's what Kevin McCarthy made as a mistake, lobbying and coveting the position of Speaker of the House to a point where he basically gave away too much because he didn't understand his value as a man and didn't understand the value of his intangibles of manhood. And that is one of the big problems when it happens when you put a beta male in a leadership position. When you put a beta male in a leadership position, a beta male doesn't understand anything about the intangibles of manhood, doesn't understand anything about the role of a man as related to his male survival skills, and doesn't understand part of your survival skills is understanding when to go out here and make a deal on the right terms. And if you're making a deal, you have to make sure that those terms are more beneficial to you than the other person. But Kevin McCarthy didn't understand this, and because he didn't understand this, this is why he wound up being ousted from his position, because he negotiated a deal on the wrong terms. And because he negotiated a deal on the wrong terms, this is why he was only in power for just a season and wound up losing that power. And he lost that power because, again, he basically went out here and was so eager to get this power that he didn't understand the position he was coming from. This is something every man has to understand, whether it be in the world of dating, the world of business, or the world of politics, or even just everyday life. A man has to understand, one, his value, two, understand that when he's going out here for what he wants, that he has to negotiate the right terms, and those terms have to be his terms, because whatever deal you make on your terms are the ones you're going to have to own. And sadly, Kevin McCarthy is going to have to own being the first Speaker of the House in over 100 years being ousted. And the reason why he was ousted was because he was a beta male man in crisis who didn't understand the basics about manhood. And this whole situation basically shows you what happens when you put a beta male in a leadership position. They create dysfunction and chaos wherever they go. And this dysfunction and chaos basically has put the entire Congress in a position where it's basically going to put the nation in crisis in 45 days, because if they can't pick a leader to lead their platform and their agenda, then the entire nation is on the road to a crisis where we will have a government shutdown that may go on for an extended period of time. Now, if you want to learn how to avoid winding up in dysfunctional situations like beta males, like Kevin McCarthy, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you also want to learn more about the whole thing about negotiating on your terms, You can also pick up my book, Stop Simping, Why Men Don't Need Finance to Get Romance, in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find that book at other online booksellers like Smashworth, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And if you want to see a fictionalized representation of manhood and leadership done the right way, you can pick up my novel, The Temptation of John Haynes, on Amazon.com, along with Stop Simping and The Man Crisis. And you can find all of my other books there in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like Smashworth, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.